start by using the dipping formula wash, and although this formula is intended for pieces to be submerged in the liquid, we will apply the product with a brush in a more precise way. This color, even though it is very dark, is ideal for almost any base color. We can dilute with water to make it softer. The acrylic washes, unlike enamels, dry fast, and we must work quickly and maintain the working area humid. This footage was filmed under 1500 watt lights and the room temperature was very high. Even so, you can see that this was no problem. Once the wash is applied in the areas with details, we will add water in the areas that must be kept clean. While everything is moist, we should blur the edges of the washes and remove the excess water with a brush and absorbent paper if necessary. With the acrylic washes, we must control the drying process till the end. While the wash is dry, we should correct areas or accumulations by moistening again with water and cleaning off surplus if necessary. The advantage of this wash is that it dries quickly and the effects that we achieve are clear and realistic. We are going to do a kind of wash that is much more specific and will serve to emphasize the details and panels. For this we will use a 50-50 mixture of wash sepia 73-200 and light gray 73-202. We must let the wash accumulate around the details and rivets and try not to stain the rest of the surface. Now is when we should start to blur the borders of the washes which have already dried. Since the water will not be sufficient for this process, we will need the airbrush cleaner, which is mild enough not to harm the base color, but strong enough to soften the acrylic wash just applied. This is why it is very important to blur the washes immediately after application and not letting them dry too much. If you wish to blur the wash while still fresh, we should apply the wash on one detail only so that it will blend easier with water and cleaner. We will actually start the chipping even before we do the fading or other kinds of effects. We will use colors of model color, although we could also use the equivalents of model air. In this case, we will paint the chipping that occurs on the green camouflage, which is why we must use the base colors. Make sure that the mixture is not too thick or too watery. Take real references to guide you and start the chipping in areas that are the most exposed to wear. Always start painting first the smallest points in the areas most damaged and then advance little by little. The hatches, fenders, and small details are places easily affected by chipping. Try to do damaged areas and others which are practically new in order to create a contrast and achieve a more realistic effect. The final aspect should be subtle and not too cluttered, so as not to overdo the effect or making the chips too large. We have also chipped large areas in gray color, which interpret the original Panzer gray from the factory. It is now the moment for metal or rust chipping. Again, we will use brushes with a fine point that will give us more control and precision, because we must make the dark chips match within the lighter chipping applied before. And of course, these new dark chips should cover the areas painted with dark yellow. The chipping phase is probably the slowest and most laborious technique of all. The correct chipping of a tank can take us various days or weeks, especially if we want fineness and want to have a very damaged vehicle. But the work is worthwhile, and we must maintain concentrated at all times, since it is very easy to commit an error at any moment. We must try to keep the contrast between the different areas and avoid repeating shapes or sizes of the different chips. The small details deserve a special treatment and a lot more attention than the rest of surfaces, since these are the most closely observed by the spectators. We will paint other details using the sponge method, which is much more effective for damaged areas, although of course we will retouch with a brush. The combination of techniques is fundamental to achieve the most realism and to avoid a boring uniformity. The final result must be balanced, but at the same time irregular, making sure that each area offers something different, avoiding monotony. Areas that are very deteriorated and damaged next to others with large chips or small pitted surfaces. The chipping should be in accordance with the setting and the result of exposure to exterior aggression. Before starting with fading and rust, we will apply some previous dust or dirt in some areas. We will use colors 71, 023 and 71, 029 in equal parts, mixing these directly into the airbrush. With this mixture of earth color, we will paint subtly some areas of our model, such as below the turret, the hull, or even the fenders. Since this mix is totally matte and the base color was satin, we will be creating a contrast of dull and bright that adds a lot of realism to our model. To apply the effect of dirt to the fenders, we must first mask the zones that will remain clean. An adhesive Tamiya tape is ideal for this job, although we can use even a piece of paper. The use of masks and templates will always be useful to give more precision when we work with an airbrush, but basically it helps us create a contrast between different levels and volumes of the model. We will now again use the sepia and light gray washes, but this time to achieve different effects. At this time, we thin the mixture with some water to create a filter effect on the surface of the model. This means we must not accumulate the mixture in the details, joints, or crevices, but instead distribute the wash over the whole surface in a regular and homogeneous form. As you can see, the mixture is very transparent since it has been thinned with water. This technique gives depth and richness to the whole surface.